Welcome back to the Power Play. We hope you enjoyed that song that we just played for you.
You're so mean.
We're just going to talk a bit of Robert Morris hockey. For the first time in their 10-year program history, they made it to the NCAA tournament, which is great news to them. They defeated Canisius in the Atlantic Hockey Association Championship in Rochester over the weekend. Unfortunately for them, when they were watching the NCAA tournament selection show, they drew number 1 seed and number 1 ranked Minnesota.
Ouch.
And they're actually playing about 8 miles from the Minnesota campus, so it's going to be a very strong crowd in favor of the Golden Gophers there. But I just thought it's a great thing for sort of college hockey in Pittsburgh. You don't really hear that much about sort of college hockey when it comes to Pittsburgh, sort of apart from the fact that we hosted the Frozen Four last year at Console. What do you guys think about sort of Robert Morris making it, and do you think it's going to put sort of Robert Morris hockey on the map a bit more?
I think it's awesome that they were able to make it. You know, like the program is still fairly young, and for them to be able to accomplish this this early, I guess you could say, that's awesome. And you know, congratulations to that team. But you know what? I understand. You know, Minnesota, obviously number 1 seed, very good team. They're playing on Minnesota's. They're practically in their hometown. The only, like, the one thing that stands out to me as far as what Robert Morris can do on a positive note, other than obviously playing the game the way they should be, is there is an incredible opportunity for an upset. Can you imagine? Could you imagine what that atmosphere would be like if Robert Morris upsets Minnesota?
Well, they did it to Kentucky the other year in basketball, and you look at what Penn State did this year in the Big Ten tournament, and they won, I believe it was 6 games during the regular season, and then pulled some massive upsets, because anything can happen in college hockey. Robert Morris, if you look at their sort of past history, they've knocked off number 1 Miami twice, they've knocked off Notre Dame, and they've even beaten Boston University, so they've had that ability under sort of Coach Shuley to beat those big teams. And all it takes is one bounce of the puck. That's what they've had before. And if they could get an early goal, who knows what could happen. Sort of, I know Minnesota's got a lot of good college players that are probably looking to go sort of post college to sort of the NHL or sort of the Canadian League. But I feel like don't give up on Robert Morris. They could lose 7-0, 8-0, or else they could make it a bit of a game. So never give up.
Even if they lose, this is definitely bringing huge exposure to the program and to college hockey in Pittsburgh as a whole. I mean, we do have the Frozen Four tournament at Console, which is really interesting, and it always draws a big crowd. But I think even if they lose, and you're right, there is a potential for an upset, which would be amazing. But I think this is just really great for the relatively new team as a whole, and it's better than what we can say for some of the other athletic programs at Robert Morris. I mean, it's kind of the only college hockey team around here. I mean, Duquesne has club hockey, which isn't.
Pitt's team is also club hockey, so they're really the only local NCAA team. And not only are they NCAA, they're NCAA Division I. So, you know, for a small, I'll use that word, you know, in quotations or whatever, but for a small program like that to go as far as they have, you're right, even if they do lose, it's a learning experience. And who's to say that they won't take their success and learn from this season and go even farther next season and the season after that.
And the good thing for them is they only lose 3 seniors on this squad. They have 3 seniors, and a lot of those juniors and sophomores are going to take this and then look to rebuild. So they won 20 games last year, and if you look at what they did between January and now, they were 2-12 on January 1st. And then when the coach brought them together, they sort of regrouped. They burnt the schedule. Sort of, I spoke to coach today. They burnt the schedule, and they just restarted. And that leadership from the juniors and the sophomores, as well as the seniors, showed that they have the potential to go a long way. Sort of, most teams that are 2-12 don't roll over and die, but they play not to lose. And this Robert Morris team played to win for the rest of the season. And they did that.
That's so important, not just in college hockey, but also in the NHL. You can never, as you said, play to lose, or play not to lose. I'm sorry. You want to play to win all the time, and that's the reason why Robert Morris is where they are right now, is because they took that terrible start to the season, and they turned it around. Much like what we talked about last week with the Flyers. They look at where they are right now. So anything can happen. Anything can happen, and that's why I think not just college hockey, but college sports are so exciting. I mean, you look at March Madness, for example. Everybody gets into that. So it's going to be a very exciting time for Robert Morris, and I wish them all the best.
Even if they do pose an upset, there's always next year. Even if they would upset them and lose maybe the second round, there's always next year.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing which I feel like college hockey in Pittsburgh doesn't get enough sort of recognition. Obviously, by not having too many teams performing well in Division 1, it takes away from that, especially with a team when you have Pittsburgh Penguins. It takes away probably 99% of hockey viewership in Pittsburgh. But I feel like if Robert Morris, they're going to be on national television, which is going to mean a lot. It's going to be great for their recruiting. And hopefully sort of Duquesne and maybe Pitt sees this and feels like that they should revamp or sort of increase funding to the hockey team and sort of make it to the tournament like Robert Morris has done.
Well, when you really want to get to it, I mean, I think you look at the Penguins organization and the success that they've had, how they've really built up that franchise since they first won the Cup in, 91 and 92. And I really have to credit the success of that team to the success of all the other hockey programs in Pittsburgh. And even though it seems like college hockey has been a little bit slower than the youth leagues and, other local programs, you have to credit the Penguins a little bit for that. And they do support, the local hockey organizations and everything. I was actually at a Robert Morris game last year and saw Brent Johnson there. So, there's definitely a lot of camaraderie between hockey players. It really is kind of like a brotherhood, I guess, between them.
And speaking of very important games, this week we also have Philly is playing the Rangers on Wednesday, and that's a red hot Philly team that's playing right now. Sort of not too happy about
that was
last
a great
week,
reaction.
Daisy, or I'm sure Philly fans would say otherwise of last weekend's performance.
I think Jake has something to say about Flyer fans in part coming up
yes.
soon too.
We have a very
sneak preview. Stay tuned, folks.
Yes, very interesting section with Jake coming up later.
Anyways, what other games do we have coming up?
Detroit plays Toronto on Saturday. That's an important game for both of those teams too. I know sort of there's some injuries still with Detroit that they have to deal with. And then obviously we talked about Chicago-Boston. That's sort of the three main games that's going on this week. Obviously each game's important coming towards the end stretch of the season. But sort of I'd watch out for Philly versus New York. Sort of the winner of that sort of has two very valuable points. And I'd be interested to see how Philly can sort of build their playoff run.
Mm-hmm. Philly is actually, as much as it pains me to say this, Philly has actually been a pretty incredible story this season. From the way they started out at the beginning back in October, and then Drew pretty much
Carrying the team.
Yeah, he started by saying we will make the postseason, we will make the playoffs this year, and as of now, like leading up till now, he has definitely made good on that promise. And like you just said, he has carried the team, and the matchup against the Rangers, like you said, is going to be huge. And even though Philly looks like they're in a good spot right now, those 2 points are going to be huge for them.
And speaking of Pittsburgh, sort of Pittsburgh plays tomorrow night. What do you think of that matchup, and what do you feel like sort of the most likely outcome is going to be of that game tomorrow night?
I think if the Penguins can get their power play back on track, I think that's going to be really crucial to how tomorrow's game turns out. Phoenix is they're fairly decent. They're not one of the powerhouse teams in the West or by any means, but I think the Penguins need to go into tomorrow's game with the approach, what did we do wrong over the weekend? What do we need to do to fix it? And how do we go about doing that? So tomorrow, I think, is almost going to be like a let's get back on our feet kind of a game. And I think if they do go about doing that in the right way, they will come out with 2 points tomorrow.
Just updating the scores before we go to break. LA is up 2-0. Justin Williams just scored. Phoenix and New York Rangers are tied at 2-2 with 3 minutes to go in the second period. Montreal is still up 1-0, but they are currently on the power play. Ottawa and Tampa Bay are tied at 1, 5 minutes into the second period, and Winnipeg and Dallas have just started in Dallas, and it's 0-0 still over there. We will be back with Jake's rant segment after the break. This is the Power Play.